Hey folks, today we're going to talk about the police hiring process, and I'm going to do that by way of a book that was sent to me a while ago about the police hiring process, and I'm going to discuss some things that are in the book, and hopefully that generates some comments and questions on the live stream. So please leave me some live stream comments and questions down there in the live feed, and then I will get to everyone's live stream comments and questions. So here's your opportunity to directly ask me questions about the police hiring process instead of having to find me on Instagram or find me on Facebook or leave comments in the comment section of YouTube videos. If you're coming to this late and you missed the live stream, put some comments down below. I always do my best to try to answer people's comments, especially about the police hiring process, because I know it's a long process, can be confusing for some people. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. Please, again, throw me some comments and questions down there for our live stream audience. As I go through, I'm sure some questions are going to come up with things that I say. So the book we're going to discuss to get this conversation started is Applicant to Police Cadet. There's going to be a link, an Amazon link down below for it. And there's a lot of positive stuff in here, a lot of stuff that I think people are going to learn from in here. And there's also some stuff that I disagree with. So we're going to get to all of that and try to give you the best advice I possibly can. So we're going to start off with the positive stuff. There's lots of things in here that I tell people all the time, and some stuff that I haven't ever thought of that is really good advice in here. So it starts off with the introduction. And the introduction, you want to freeze frame that right there in case you're one of those people that likes to read it. It says, becoming a police officer in the current climate of today's societal view of the profession is a hard thing to do. However, despite all the negative stories in the press, the public scrutiny, and the very real hazard to your health, you are still interested in becoming a police officer. That's good. We need people who are not only qualified, but who have a hunger to help and serve the community in the face of extreme criticism. That's quite an intro, I would say. Couldn't have written that better myself. So let's get on to some things that are very common questions that people have that are covered by the book. One of the first chapters is education. And it says in here, contrary to popular belief, it does not matter what the degree that you get is in, so pick a subject you are interested in and can compete in. If you really want to separate yourself from the pack, then acquire professional licenses in addition to college level education. This goes back to what I tell people all the time. Your choices to find good agencies, lots of places require a college degree or they require a college degree or military service. So military service is pretty straightforward. No, it doesn't matter what branch or what you did in the military. They just want to see that you're doing something positive with your life. And as far as college is concerned, a lot of people, a lot of places, a lot of universities will try to convince you need to go to a specialized program just for law enforcement. There are scant few agencies that require a specialized law enforcement degree, and there's many places out there that are selling people law enforcement related degrees that aren't real things. They're not real things that anybody needs to get any job anywhere, but college are still selling them. Things like forensics. You're going to get an associate's degree in forensics that's going to do you nothing, because no one requires an associate's degree in forensics for anything I've ever found. Leave it down in the comments or questions if you know a place that gets you an entry-level job with an associate's degree in forensics that wouldn't just take anything, but I've never found it. I don't see any purpose behind that. So the advice is always get a degree in something else that you would like to be able to do if law enforcement doesn't work for you. And a lot of people get upset about that, saying, well, you know, I know law enforcement is going to work for me. You think it's going to work for you. That doesn't mean that it's going to work long term. What if you break your femur at the academy? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Wish you continued on with being a cop while you're on disability, or are you going to find something else to do? So pick something else that you also like, get a degree in that, then hit the law enforcement aspect. You can always minor in criminal justice or another law enforcement section later on down the road. If you want to promote human resources management is a good thing to get into. Public administration are good things to get into. If you want to set yourself aside from the pack and become an investigator of some kind later, if you're good with math, accounting's not a bad thing to look into as well. So let's skip through and find some other good stuff in here. I got a dog-eared in here. So, talking about federal agencies, if you want to go federal, the book says, one key point to note is almost all federal agencies will require at least 3 years of full-time work experience, a bachelor's degree, or sometimes of military service with an honorable discharge. I'd say that's most police departments, that's going to be their preference. There's very few places around me that are going to want to take you if you've only ever had a part-time job, and your part-time job was like working at McDonald's. Unless you're straight out of college and you're 21, it's an agency that's looking for that type of person. A lot of places are looking for someone that's a little older, that's, their early 20s, between 23 and 25, and they have some type of work experience, especially if they don't have a bachelor's degree. They're looking for that work experience to show, hey, this person is going to be good at the job. You need something that's going to set you apart. You can't come in at 22 years old with no degree, having never served in the military, and never had a full-time job, and never gone to college, and expect to get a job as a cop. It just doesn't work that way. But especially at the federal level. Another thing to bring up about the feds that a lot of people don't talk about is in most federal agencies, there's no overtime. Something to think about if you're looking at what agency, but we'll get into agencies a little bit further in the book. Talking about different types of departments and their pluses and minuses, it talks about specialty departments, game wardens, railroad police. One thing that does in special jurisdiction police, things like park districts and school police departments, which that changes state by state. One thing they don't talk about very much is the private industry. There's a lot of private policing industry out there. There's a lot of money in private policing if you're good at what you're doing. Now, while it might not be the best job straight out of the gate for people, somebody with 5 or 10 years of experience working in a municipal department, even if that department didn't pay really well, might get a very good paying job working federal contract security. So something to think about. So it talks about small departments, medium departments, makes lots of good points. Small departments, you're a tight-knit group, you know everybody, so when something is kind of in your wheelhouse, other people at your agency are going to know it's in your wheelhouse. They're going to ask you for assistance. That's how, if you're good at investigating things, you're going to become a detective. Medium departments kind of give you the best of both worlds and some stuff, and sometimes they don't have enough opportunities to get you everything a large department would. Like if you want to go full-time on a SWAT team, a medium or small department is probably not the place to go. You're going to get a part-time team, and you have to go to the very largest departments to get on a full-time SWAT team. One thing that it says under large things to consider for department size, it says large departments, it says promotions, promotions, promotions. If moving up is your aim in your career, and it should be, then a large department is worth a look. They have huge recruiting efforts, meaning more opportunities for you to get hired and promoted. Okay, here's the thing. Most people at large departments are not going to be the deputy chief. So while it's great to have goals, that doesn't necessarily have to be your goal. And don't think that if you don't ever want to be somebody's boss, being a cop isn't a good thing, or you're a bad applicant because you come to the job saying, hey, I'm not looking to be promoted. I'm looking to be a cop. I'm looking to go and do canine. I want to do narcotics or something else. Having said that, have something else you always want to get into later on down the road. And if you don't have something later on down the road that you want to do, then look for it. Sometimes you fit into things. I said, I never thought about going into field training until long after I was a cop. And I was like, oh, give me that try. I do a lot of teaching with the scouts. I'd like to do that. And I ended up being good at it. Originally, I want to do something completely different. But have an idea where you want to go. And large departments might not always help you with promotions, because a lot of them, it's very political anyway, but it will help you with opportunities within the department. Those specialized jobs, getting promotions, getting those assigned deputy chief jobs and stuff later on down the road. So they're worth looking into for that. One thing it puts up here is when you talk about agencies is cost of living and safe neighborhoods. So some departments require that you live in the town that you work in. And with large agencies, that's not necessarily a big concern, because you can kind of hide yourself in that large agency's jurisdiction. Some of them have geographical limitations. You have to live within 20 or 50 miles of work, or within these expressways and things like that. Something to think about, though, is something that's not necessarily important to you when you're real young and full of piss and vinegar early on in your career, but might become very important to you after you get married and have kids. Even if you don't think you're going to get married and have kids now, you don't want to get caught up in an agency that's very small, that's very dangerous, where they tell you have to live in town. Because you could be stuck sending your kids to that school district, you could be stuck living in that town, and all of the gangbangers knowing where you live after you've locked them up for 10 years. You get married, have kids, and now you're stuck there. So something that a lot of people don't think about, but is very, very good advice. Always consider the long term with all of this stuff. What's this going to be like in 5-10 years? So with applications, there's lots of stuff in the application section of this that is absolutely awesome. had this book for several months now, and I've slowly been reading through because it was interesting. I actually picked up some stuff that I'm going to tell people about. And here's one of them. So with applications, you have to be truthful. You have to tell them everything on the application, right? So if they ask you about your work history, you got to put all your work history in there. This thing's starting to piss me off. I guess we're definitely editing this later. I may have to just put you guys on my windshield here. So, one of the things that's very interesting with this is the application process, and they give you a lot of good advice for applications. One thing about your application is that you need your entire work history. Your entire adult work history needs to go on the app in most places. Most police departments are not looking for, your last 7 years, your last 10 years. They want to know all of it. So, a piece of advice in here that I never thought of before is the Social Security Office has something called an earnings statement that can help you remember all the jobs you've had over the years. So if you ever paid taxes, you ever filed federal taxes, and you claimed your earnings on those taxes from a job, the Social Security Office has a database with all that information in it. So you can look up, if you're one of those people who's had 10 jobs over the course of 20 years, and you started when you were real young, but you were paying your taxes the whole time, you can look it up that way. I've never tried that before. That's good advice. I would definitely give that a try if I was in that circumstance. Applying to departments. Look at this one. Here's one I see people screw up all the time. Right there. Read the instructions. Read the instructions. Listen, if a police department gets 50 applications or 500 applications, and right on the front it says, fill out every box, anything that's not applicable, put N/A in, and you don't put N/A in all of the other boxes, your application is likely to get thrown in the garbage. Be advised. Read the instructions, read them completely understand them before you go start and doing the application, because you could screw something up that gets yours thrown in the trash. So for the physical agility test, I know that the gentleman who wrote this is in Texas, so a lot of this stuff he's trying to give you basic ideas of what physical agility tests are, and a lot of it's very good. Some of it's not applicable where I'm at, some of it's not applicable in Indiana or areas near here. But let me give you something that might be a real good shorthand. If you're talking about working in a particular state, look up what the state standard physical ability test is. Look it up. Because in Illinois, we have one standard, the power test. And then you know exactly what the physical ability standard is. And so you can just train to that standard. And then you know you're good. In fact, in Illinois, we get a little card that certifies that you passed the power test, and you can get one every year. And then you just show up with your little card. Hey, I passed the power test, and then they can hire you off of that. You don't have to take the test every time you test with a new department. Definitely something to look into. If you're just starting the process, you're going to try to figure out, how do I get in shape? Google physical fitness standards, police, and then your state. The rest of this is very good. Basically says 1.5 mile run, 300 to 400 meter sprint. We don't have that here. Push-ups, we don't have those here. We actually do a bench press. Sit-ups, we do sit-ups here. Dummy drag rescue simulation, we don't do that here. Obstacle course, there's only one agency I've ever applied to or even heard of in Illinois that has an obstacle course. And they added in weapon manipulation. We would never do that here, ever. We're not just going to hand people guns, no. And a 2,000 meter row on a rowing machine. I've never seen that anywhere. But interesting. That must be a thing down there. All right. So then he goes on to talk about the interview process and how to dress. So here's one where we filled this with a lot of stuff, and I know he's writing a book. We filled this with a lot of stuff giving you ideas for the interview process. Let me tell you something. Wear a suit. Doesn't matter, man or woman. Wear a suit. And when it comes to the grooming standards over here, find out what the grooming standards are for the agency you're applying to and show up meeting those standards so they can see what you are going to look like when you work for them and that you're not going to be a problem. So, for instance, you could follow everything in here and have your hair cut short, and you could be clean shaven, you could be all set, but if you have bright blue hair, they might not even look at you past the interview because they don't want someone with bright blue hair. And don't think that doesn't happen. It does. You're showing your hand. Find out what their standards are, meet those standards. For large agencies, those standards are very often published. So if you're going to go work for NYPD, LAPD, Chicago PD, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Alaska State Troopers, those standards are published. People know what those standards are. Look them up, meet those standards when you come in for the interview. Speech and answering questions. Very good advice in here. It says, avoid phrasing your answers as questions or with unsure statements. State your answer. Don't use statements like, I think I would do, I guess I would do, probably, I'm sure, etc. Don't do that. Sound confident. They're looking for people that sound confident. You are trying to get a job as a cop. There's lots of interview tips in here. A lot of them are very good. I'll let you read them in the book. Oral board tips. It says before you go to an oral board, so you're going to sit in front of 5 or 6 people who are going to talk to you about law enforcement and why you want to get into it. Do some research on the department before you go, which is good advice. Go for a ride along if you can. Also good advice. It says do not bring up things you've seen on cop shows or in the movies. This sounds self-explanatory, but you'd be surprised. Suffice to say, TV is nothing like real life. Live PD is not like real life. Cops is not like real life. These are TV shows. They're mostly scripted. They might be based on things that happen in real life to real life people, but they're cut and pasted, and there's a lot of scripting going on, and there's people saying things they wouldn't normally do and doing things they wouldn't normally do, especially in ways they wouldn't normally do if they weren't going to go on TV. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality of it. You can't get police administrators to allow places to come in and do these types of shows without the show saying, well, but we also want your cops to talk to them right at the car door and get their side of the story for the video. And they're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, just do that when you're on calls. We would never do that in real life. And that's just one small example of it. So don't bring up stuff you see on TV shows very often. It's not gonna be real anyway. All right, so your personal history questionnaire. Don't always have this. Normally it's part of the application. There's very good advice in here about keeping all of your applications. So listen, from the first time you apply for a job, any job, before you turn that application in, you make a double-sided color Xerox copy of it. The whole thing. Put it in a file. Keep all of them. When you're applying for police departments, every single one you do, double-sided color Xerox copy of all of them. Put it in a file. Doesn't matter if it's black and white paperwork, double-sided color, so you don't lose anything. Put it in a file. So when you apply for a new police department, you apply for your first police department, you apply for your 10th police department, you have a record of what you put on all the other applications. Because if your stuff is inconsistent, they will find out, and that will be a huge red flag later on that there's something wrong with you, even if there isn't. You forget about a job that you put one job on one application for one department and not on the other department, and they cross-check them, they're gonna be like, why are you hiding this job? Could have nothing to do with you actually doing anything wrong, but why have to explain any of that? And some places get so many applicants, they won't let you explain. They just take it, boop, that one failed, done. Don't get yourself into that trick bag. Save all your applications, all of them. There's a whole section on the polygraph. Okay. It says, be honest, be completely honest, be relaxed, don't research how to beat the polygraph. Stay off the forums. Pro tip, don't let them call you by your civilian nickname. Keep it 100% professional. I let a polygraph examiner do this once and it completely messed me up. You should find out right after the examination whether you passed or not, so there shouldn't be any guessing once leaving the site. I haven't found any of this to be true. This is the one big area that I completely divert with the author. Google polygraph junk science, because it's garbage. The polygraph is not admissible in court. It's really only used for federal and state and local hiring process with people that are going to have some level of security clearance, even if it's law enforcement sensitive information. It's basically a stress test. If you Google that, most of your stress will go away because you'll know that it doesn't work unless you think that it works. The rest of it, like not letting them call you by your civilian nickname, like you call me Tommy all you want, I don't care. It wouldn't bother me. Maybe it threw him off. I would stay away from forums with disgruntled prior applicants who are upset that they messed up the polygraph. Basically, if you get stressed out by the polygraph, you're going to fail it. That's how they work. Just Google polygraph junk science. You'll feel a whole lot better afterward. And then you'll go into the polygraph and you tell them what you need to tell them and you'll be on your way. The worst thing you can do is overthink it. You like get all hyped up before you go. Don't overthink it. Just go in, answer the questions, know that there's no way they can tell whether you're lying or not, and then walk out. You'll be fine. And every time I took the polygraph, they didn't tell me immediately afterward that I passed, but I knew I did because I know how the polygraph works. In fact, they generally asked me, do you know how the polygraph works? And I'd say, yeah, I actually did a paper in college on the polygraph and how it works. And they go, oh, okay. And they like ask me my name and a couple other questions, like, okay, you're done. We should have the results in a couple of days. And I pass every time. It's just like, if you know how it works, it doesn't work. Pre-employment medical examination. So he goes over, you're gonna be sent in for a medical exam. You get hired by a place, they want to make sure you're not going to be like a physical liability. So they bring you in and they do an eye test and test your reflexes and make sure you're not red-green colorblind. Here's one that I've never seen before, the smell test. And this isn't like, see if you smell, that should be done at the oral board or at the interview. Smell test. Some departments use this test to make sure your olfactory receptors are working properly. I've never seen that before. I mean, it makes sense that some places would do it. I've never seen that before. Never seen it. Never seen them do it. Things to consider when applying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Learn to pivot. Think about agencies that aren't necessarily police agencies. So he talks about in here working for TSA or Conservation Border Protection, Customs, being a public service aide or community service officer. If, like, say you find out that you're 40 and you're too old to do the job in your state, you don't want to have to relocate, things like that. Here's a couple other things that I would add in. People often discount going to corrections, which a lot of people I know started off in corrections as like a stepping stone, and then found out later on they really liked it and just stayed in corrections because they were making a lot of money and they had seniority, which means they get good time off. Some other things to think about: probation departments, parole agencies, private policing, government contracts like we talked about before. Probation and parole can be awesome jobs. I know people that made whole careers out of being probation officers and they loved it. Don't discount that type of agency. A lot of times they have a lot lower physical fitness standards. So if you've got a bum leg, you can still be a probation officer because you're going to be in an office most of the time and occasionally you're going to do house checks, but you're not expected on a regular basis to be fighting with people or chasing perps or anything like that. People you're dealing with, you know who they are, no reason to chase them, right? Makes sense. Give those a shot. I know quite a few people who they've really like found their place doing those when they would have otherwise been disqualified and had to go get another job. Lastly, he talks about social networks. And I like fly right in the face of most of these suggestions, but here's a couple things that you want to think about. Everybody, here's a universal truth. Everybody has a presence on social media of some type. How large or small yours is and what it says about you is going to be an issue with your background check. Okay? I have a saying with people when I work with the scouts, work with parents, and I'm like, I'm going to make a Facebook Messenger group. I'm going to add you guys in, and then we will just contact each other through Facebook Messenger so I know whether or not you've seen it. And I always get somebody, I don't have Facebook. You're a liar. You have a Facebook. You have a Facebook. I hate Facebook, and I have a Facebook. And then, 20 minutes into talking to them later, oh, I do have a Facebook. Okay, you have a Facebook. Everyone knows you have a Facebook, right? So one of the suggestions that the author gives is just delete your social media everything. Let me caution you against this. If you try to claim you have no social media presence at all, and I've seen this happen to people before, you try to claim you have no social media presence at all, you don't have a Facebook, you don't have an Instagram, you don't have Snapchat, you don't have anything, there are departments who want the login information for your social media, and if you try to claim you don't have it, they will go find something that you have, and they will find it because they will ask all of your references for other references. So they'll go to the third layer of references to find someone who knows you have a Facebook, who gives them your Facebook name, and they find you on Facebook, you're disqualified for lying on the application. The other thing he suggests is just delete all of it. Doesn't that kind of seem like you're trying to hide something? If you go in and just delete all your social media, you go in and apply and they say, we need the logins for all your social media, you're like, oh, I deleted all of it. So let me give you some real easy solution for this. Go through your Facebook and delete stuff that is stupid. Anything that's older than 5 years old, right? I'm 35. Stuff that's more than 5 years old was 30-year-old me. If you're 20 and you're applying for a police department, do you really want 15-year-old you representing you? No. So either go back and delete all the old stuff, all the old things that you posted, or create a new Facebook, delete the old one, and start anew when you start applying to departments. And put stuff on there. This is who I am today, right? Have friends, don't have your friends that are now convicted felons on there from grammar school and high school. Have just friends you have now. Don't do it right before you apply. You know, your last year of college, start a new Facebook, delete the old one, and have just stuff that you're proud of, you know, the things that represent you now. Then you're not lying to the agency and saying, oh, I don't have a Facebook. There's nothing wrong with deleting your old Facebook from when you were 12 and creating a new one, or deleting your old Instagram from when you were 12 and having a new one, so that you've got, you know, a year or two of actual Facebook time, and then watch what you're putting on there. Don't put stupid things on your Facebook and you won't have any problems. But don't just delete it and tell them you don't have one, because that looks suspicious. And that is all of the dog ears that I have for the book. It's a pretty good book. I'm going to have an Amazon link down in the description down below. When I get home on the live screen, when I get home, I'll put an Amazon link down there. But you can find it. It's Applicant to Police Cadet, How to Navigate the Police Hiring Process by CRC. I forget what that stands for. Anyway, here is the ISBN number, in case you want to look it up by ISBN. And now we are going to take comments and questions from the live stream audience, at least as long as my A camera up here still has battery. Let me get my lunch on here. All right. Go right to the top. I am sure we're going to have lots of interesting comments and questions. I'm going to pull this off because it kept falling off of here. The heat has totally killed my tripod. As you can see, the head just came off of it with just me trying to pull it off. So I need to buy a new tripod. Let's see if we can get everybody's comments and questions in here. Go to the top. Everybody's saying hi, hello, how's it going? How's it going? Pretty good. Excited for this one. I'm glad you like it. Tier Talk says, Tommy, what up, brother? Not a whole lot. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Go check out Tier Talk's channel if you're interested in being a correctional officer. Sorry, Dishwasher says first stream. It's like my 60th. Andrew Kalenko says, where's the best place for a patrolman? In a car, because it's air-conditioned, heated. You're unlikely to be rained on when you're physically in the car. That's not always the case if you drive through water, so try not to drive through water. Best in the world. Why do people need bachelor's degrees to be cops? They don't need bachelor's degrees to be cops. Some agencies require a bachelor's degree to be a cop. And so if you want to have the best opportunity possible to get a job, get a bachelor's degree, and then you have the best opportunity to get a job, the best opportunity later on down the road. If you want to transfer departments, you're not going to be locked out of it because you don't have a bachelor's degree. Most police departments, at least in my area, are dropping their educational requirements because they're figuring out that goofy college kids don't always make the best cops, and it doesn't really add anything to your ability to do the job, which is something I've been saying for years. Tier Talk says, I got a degree in psychology. That's great, but what can you do with that if you're not going to work corrections or be a cop? So is there some other job you can do with it? And that's what I mean when I say get a degree that's not in your primary profession, right? So accounting, if I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, I can go be an accountant. Right? I can go get my certification to be an accountant. If I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, what is that going to do for me? It's kind of something that you use to get another job. need to get another degree to get the job that you want. You can't be a psychologist with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and you certainly can't get an associate's degree in psychology and do pretty much anything that you can't do with any other associate's degree. So get something that lines you up for another job. Cameron says, at my local department, you don't even need a degree at all. All you need is 60 credits, and you can get 24 at the academy. Lots of places are going to minimum credit hour numbers. And those are basically based on how many credits you would be expected to get in like 2 years of college. So they're not blocking out candidates that went to a community college. Because that was a problem for a while. They were like, oh, you need a bachelor's degree. Now everyone that doesn't have the money to go to a university is locked out of it, or they have to go to a community college, then go to a university. And when you do that, I don't know if any of you have done that, but you end up losing like 6 months to a year in between times if you don't time it perfectly. So now you're delaying those candidates, and a lot of these lists are 3 to 5 year lists. So you might be locked out of an agency for 5 years because you didn't meet some educational requirement that really doesn't have anything to do with your ability to do the job. So that's why a lot of them are getting cut back. They're getting cut to 60 credit hours. Now, if you go get 60 credit hours, you don't eventually get a bachelor's degree, you're probably creating yourself problems, especially if you want to leave your department that you start at and go somewhere else. And a lot of people are hopping between agencies every 5 to 10 years. Something to think about. Noah Dismore says Mossberg 500 or Remington 870 has nothing to do with this, but I like the Mossberg 590. 500 isn't my favorite thing because they generally don't come with real sights. They just have a bead front, and I like my 870. The Road to Blue says, hey, Tom. Who's Tom? I'm Tommy. Nobody calls me Tom except people that are embarrassed calling me Tommy. I've never understood that, honestly. Let's find something. Let's find a question. Mac Plays says, please mention me. I am mentioning Mac Plays. Cameron says, best first concealed carry. If you're going to be a cop, your best first concealed carry would be whatever you're going to use as a duty pistol, if you know what that's going to be. A lot of people that go into police work, the first time that they conceal carry is when they leave the police academy, and all they've got is their duty pistol, and that's what they end up carrying, and then they go from there, which is kind of nice because then they have like 1,200 to 3,000 rounds, ideally. 1,200 to 3,000 rounds through their carry pistol. They're carrying that around for a while, and then they can decide later on what they really want. Allegiance Holster says, can't wait to win my X300 and help me pee in the dark. Guaranteed it's going to still be on the gun. I have a video called, Top 5 Investment Quality Pieces of Police Gear. If you haven't seen it yet, go check that out. We're doing a giveaway on there, and one of the things we're giving away is a Surefire X300U weapon light. Thanks for stopping by, Allegiance Holsters. Guardian Angel's Devices says, hey, Tommy. Hi, how's it going? Done a lot of videos on Guardian Angel devices. It's the little shoulder mounted. Actually, I have one right here because I got my vest. There it is. Got it on their little platform, and what this does is you turn it on, you get party lights. Even during the day, traffic seems to stop for this. And then you can turn a little red LED on or some white LEDs so you can read IDs and stuff at night, or you can turn on just the backlights. And these things run like forever. I love this little light. I always have it on me when I'm working. Put that back on there really quick. Coupon code for that is 80CLIP if you want one. Get you this clip, the mount clip, and free shipping. Blackjack21 says, I just took my psych oral. I checked the site and it says deferred records. I hope I pass. I have no idea what deferred records means. Nerd Yo-Yo says, nothing is lost in the internet. It's forever. It's not really. It may have been true at one point, but it's not really anymore. Companies do not have the storage space to store your stuff indefinitely. So while it's nice to assume it's forever, it's not. You know, if you delete your Facebook profile, Facebook's not going to store that information forever. They're going to store it for like 30 days, and then it's going to end up getting purged. And a police department would have to get a warrant to get that information anyway. What they're looking for with your social media is what is your presence out there. When people Google you, what do they find? And that's what you have to worry about with social media. Don't assume it's not worth deleting because it's forever. 15-year-old you is not 21-year-old you, and it's not 25-year-old you. Don't be stuck with it because you think it's there forever. Eric Dizzy says, I deleted Facebook because it was too hard to have multiple girlfriends. I can see that. Valid argument. Lex Green says, what's the age limit? Currently 43 and fit, no military though. Any options? Okay, so at the federal level, I've heard that it's 35, 36, and 37. That might be agency specific. In Illinois, it's 35. In lots of states, it hovers between 35 and 40. Some places have no limits. You're going to have to Google it because every state basically sets their own standards. The Gaming Trader says, I took the psych test today in Miami. It was nearly 1,000 questions and took about 5 hours to complete. I don't doubt you at all. I took the Chicago Police psych test, and it was written test, and then you had to come in and talk to a psychologist after it, like several months after it, about what you wrote on the test, and it took hours. It was crazy. Nestor Jara says, I'm on academic probation since I've never been a school person, but I have 5 years of assistant management experience and a year of being the store manager. Would a department look at this as bad? And not necessarily. If you have good work history, a lot of departments, and you're older, so let's say you're 25 to 30 years old, and you have good work history, if the department doesn't require that you have a bachelor's degree or require you have 60 credit hours or require you have an associate's, they're probably going to look on that favorably that you have good, solid work history, all working at the same place in management positions, depending on what those management positions are. So obviously working at the go-kart track as the manager with one other employee is different than working at even McDonald's where you've got 50 employees and you're doing schedules and you're managing those people. Being the manager of a McDonald's is a legit job for a 27-year-old. Being the manager of the go-kart track, not so much. Karamu Walker says, how long do you plan on doing police work? Until either some company hires me to be their spokesman. If anybody wants to hire me to be their spokesman, start giving me offers where I can make, as much or more than I make here with good benefits. I can take care of my kids and my family, or until I age out. And right now it's looking like it's probably going to be when I age out, which would be in Illinois, 65. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be somewhere between 50 when I'm eligible to start collecting my pension and 65 when I age out. I've got some time. Mr. Batman says, hey, Tommy, I just had an interview with the sheriff's department. They asked why I want to be a police officer, and I said, so I can get experience to work later as a foreign affairs officer. Is this good or bad? I don't think that sounds... I would have to ask you what a foreign affairs officer is. But if you're trying to get experience being a cop and you have career aspirations, for a lot of places they're going to like that because it shows that you have career aspirations. And just like in corrections here in Cook County, people go on to the Cook County Department of Corrections and they tell them, well, eventually I want to be a cop. And they're like, okay, that's fine, because they know if they pay you enough and give you enough seniority, you get the time off you want, you might stick around. They might be able to hook you in. But generally speaking, places want someone that has career aspirations. They don't want someone that wants to be a deadbeat. Who'd want to work with that? John Wolf says, getting paid to have a target on your back 24/7. Is that 24/7? Well, for me it is because of the internet footprint. But for most people, if you don't cut your hair really short and then, build a bunch of muscle mass and wear policey t-shirts and drive a car with a sticker in the back window that says you're a cop, most people aren't going to know you're a cop most of the time. Osman Salim says, I was not moved forward in the background process from 3 departments and none are telling me why. You think it's either my previous employer or the fact that I have a beard? All right. So if your previous employer is giving you a bad recommendation, then that could be it. Another thing is, if you're applying to places that don't allow beards and you've got a big old honking beard, that could be an issue too. Like I said, you want to be able to meet the grooming standards that agency has when you come in and apply. In every stage of the process, unless they tell you to wear something else, wear a suit. When I applied at the place I'm at now, I was working as a truck driver, and they called me and were like, hey, do you want this job? Yeah, I do. Let's go. And they're like, come on in and get fingerprinted. I was like, all right, well, when do you want me to come in? And like, how about, when can you get in? I was like, 5 o'clock today. I'll be out of work at 3. I'll come in by 5. And they said, all right. I was like, hey, I'm not going to be dressed. Like, I'm coming straight from work and I'm a truck driver. I'm like, oh, no, that's not a problem. So preface it with that. Unless they say it's okay otherwise, and it seems like it's going to be totally okay, wear a suit every step of the process. It's not going to hurt you. Givens Lifts says, I've been denied by 10 agencies. I just had bad credit, and I job hopped a lot. I never have been in criminal trouble. What should I do? Get a bad credit card with like a $500 limit, put $300 on it, and pay it every month. Get a job, keep that job. Within a couple years, you will have credit and you will have good work history. That's it. Austin the Beast says, is it fun to be a cop? Some days it is the most fun that I have ever had in my entire life. And some days it is the worst thing I've ever had to do or even heard of somebody having to do outside of stories from war. Depends on your perspective and whether you like it. Lots of people come on this job 3 to 5 years later, they beat feet, they go back and they do something else. A buddy of mine, very good friend of mine, we're still very good friends. He came on the job, he was a teacher, came on the job, he was a cop for 5 years, he's like, hey, I gotta get out of here. Went back to being a teacher, and there's nothing wrong with that. For some people, the fun does not outweigh the bad. For me, it does. I love my job. Ray Arlito says, hello from San Antonio. Hello from Chicago. Glockenspiel223 says, how long do you have to have held down a solid job before applying to an LE agency? You don't have to have held down a solid job. The issue is the totality of what you're showing to the agency. So if you've been in college, they're looking at what have you been doing the last 3 to 5 years, okay, with this work history stuff. Have you been in college? Have you had a full-time job? Have you had a part-time job? How long have you worked there? What have you been doing that shows us you are a reasonable, responsible adult that we're going to be okay going out and dispensing justice to the public? So there's not a timeline on it. It's what is the totality of what you're doing say. So if you were a full-time student for 4 years, you got a bachelor's degree, you got out, and you got a job like you worked as an EMT, or you worked at, Sears, or he's a car salesman or something, right? A job that makes sense for a 24-year-old who's straight out of the college and he's applying for departments. And you work there 6 months. Don't think I can't apply because I've only had 6 months of job experience. Like, your job, you're like, I got out of high school, I went to college full time, I graduated on time, I got a job, I've been doing it for 3 months. I want to come work for your police department because that's what I've always wanted to do. That's my career goal, is to be a cop. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So don't think about it as far as timeline, but look at it the totality of what you're showing them. Magic Man says, guarantee ID or international investigation will go through every possible way. You'll have social media. Simple, don't ever put up anything your mother or grandmother won't want to see on your post. Exactly. Don't post stuff that you don't want the whole world to know about, even if your social media is completely, totally locked down. Just don't post stuff that you wouldn't want grandma to see. Nerdy Oyo says, I was wondering, what are my chances of becoming a police officer or to work in law enforcement with a misdemeanor of petty theft that's 10 years old? I'm going to college and had a clean record since. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, again, this is one of those things, if you're 35 and this is something happened, over 10 years ago, or you're 25 and this is something happened over 10 years ago, likely those records don't exist anymore. So if this is something that happened as a juvenile and now you're an adult, that record might not even exist at all. But if you're 35 and you got convicted of a petty theft when you're 25, that's not necessarily reflective of who you are now. And basically your only option to be able to get a job, because that's what's called a crime of moral turpitude, would be to have that conviction expunged. And there's a whole long process for getting stuff expunged. You're going to have to Google that for your local area and figure out what that process is. Generally speaking, a misdemeanor conviction for theft or any other crime of moral turpitude would disqualify you from getting a job as a cop. I'm not selling my old police radio. Sorry, Lightning Vlogs. Goofy News says, what's your thoughts on becoming a volunteer/reserve officer as well as having a full-time job? That's simple. If you make more at your current full-time job than you would as a cop in any agency you could get hired by, keep your current full-time job and then get a part-time job being a cop. Or as a reserve or something, if it's just been your little thing you've always wanted to do your whole life. Don't quit your job making $120,000 a year to go be a cop in central Indiana. It doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, this is a job. You do it to make money. You don't want to leave your job making good money to find out that the job that you left it for that makes bad money isn't your cup of tea, and then have to go back and fight to get your old job back or find a new job. Allegiance Holsters asks, what is the biggest or most common problem with new academy graduates? Not getting it. And what it is hard to quantify. A lot of people that we've gotten recently, and not just where I'm working or just me, and I hear it from trainers all over the country, is a lot of people that are getting into law enforcement now come out without the understanding that they're the police, that it's their job to dispense justice to the public, that they're going to have to be the arbitrator of problems right on the street. And for some reason, people are getting through the hiring process, they're getting through the academy, and they're still not getting that it's now your job to do this. This is your thing you are going to have to do. And some people never get it, and I've had them fail out of the program like, I just don't understand. And some people get it like that. It takes time for people to understand that, like, you're being called to the worst day of somebody's life, and you are going to have to be the person that makes decisions without calling your boss or calling your wife or calling your mama to figure out what that decision is going to be, because people are calling you to get that advice. They're calling you because they don't know, and they're looking for you to solve the problem. And a lot of people never get into being problem solvers. It's not something they've ever had to do in college. They've never been put forward with a problem that's time sensitive they have to do right now and have to make a decision on it. They've got weeks and months to do projects, and we're doing projects every day that need to be done in 10 minutes, and decisions that need to be made in seconds. So that's the biggest problem that I have with people that are brand new, is trying to teach them you are the police and you are going to have to make decisions on your own. And I'm not going to be sitting in the seat next to you to make decisions 3 months from now. So you better learn how to do it now. Maslov Minov says, are you being considered different for a police job, correctional, or any law enforcement job when you are applying in your 20 and in your 30? What is a good age to join that kind of profession? Well, first you're going to want to lock your English down a little better, especially your writing skills, because I don't really understand completely that. A good age to start is whenever they allow you to start applying, and then until you get a job or decide you don't want that job anymore. That's it. Morgan Kidwell says, hi, it's my first stream. Thank you for stopping in. I'm a chief patrol supervisor for a security company, and I just want to say thank you for your videos because I decided to join the police force. Hey, hopefully you're making more money on a police department than you are at a security company. If not, go back. For Shugoki says, how many years of experience in law enforcement does it take to be an academy instructor if there's a way? All right, so oftentimes police academy instructors, it has nothing to do with your actual abilities that you're a police academy instructor. It's that you know the right people. Like, for instance, there's basically private organizations that run police academies, and you know somebody, and that's how you get that job. Or you work for the Chicago Police Department, and you know somebody, and so you get a job working at the Chicago Police Academy. Or you work for the Cook County Sheriff's Department, and you know somebody, so you work for the Sheriff's Police Academy or the Sheriff's Academy. It's oftentimes that's what it is. The requirements, most people are going to want you to be a cop for like 3 years at least, so they know you're like vetted in law enforcement before you start thinking about that. But that's not a job you go in like and you're like, one day I want to teach at the police academy. That's a job that somebody's like, hey Tommy, you want to teach this class at the police academy on defensive tactics? I'm like, what does it pay? It's a job that you get asked to do. It's not something that you like aspire to normally. Mr. Mass says, are you one of those cops that bounce departments when they get fired. This is a big problem in law enforcement, is that some agencies don't fire people. It's not the guys get fired and then get hired somewhere else. I'm sure that happens occasionally, but most agencies won't hire you if you get fired from another department. It's that departments sit people down and they go, okay, well, you stole. We're going to give you an opportunity to just resign. That's the problem that you get. You allow people to resign, and then that person goes and they become a cop somewhere else, even though they should never be allowed to be a cop again. If they got fired, that new agency would find out about it. But because they were allowed to resign, they don't ever find out. Because they go, oh, this guy was a cop somewhere for 15 years. We'll hire him. You get to a lot with small agencies. Sorry about that. Demetrius Jones says, I have an interview with a background investigator next week. What should I expect? You should expect someone in a suit and a tie to ask you questions about the background information that you gave them in a written packet. So they've probably gotten your written packet that you had to fill out for your application or your background interview survey, and then they go out and they check it, and then they come back and they interview you, and they might go out and check it again and come back and interview you again. But you should expect them to ask you things about the stuff that they found during your background. Mr. Batman says, a foreign affairs officer are guys who deal with Americans who get in legal trouble overseas, embassy security, and a few other things. Oh, that's cool. That would make sense then, yeah. Tom Allaport says, just on the back end of my hiring process, just have an approval meeting with the Police and Fire Commission, then Academy. Hey, congratulations. Sounds like you're almost there. Blue Toast says, what if I have inappropriate tattoos that are covered by a t-shirt? See the social media thing. If you've got inappropriate tattoos, you should probably work on getting rid of them. Doesn't matter if they're coverable by a t-shirt. If it's inappropriate, get rid of it. I mean, if you're saying it's inappropriate, then obviously the police department's going to think it's inappropriate, right? Morgan Kidwell says, I know you have to find something to unwind at the end of the day, but do you ever get over some of the things you see? Some stuff that you see working as a cop or a fireman or an EMT or even a tow truck driver, you don't ever unsee, no matter how hard you try. CLU, here's finally a medical question I know the answer to. Can you be a police officer if you have controlled by meds epilepsy? Here's the issue. If you're having seizures, you have epilepsy, very often you can't get a driver's license. If you can't get a driver's license, you can't be a cop. If you can get a driver's license, it's very likely you can be a cop. Just that simple. So, do you have a driver's license? You can probably get a job as a cop. But it's going to depend on the doctor that certifies you for the job when they're giving you the medical evaluation. Jet says, sir, I'll have you know that you still have your seatbelt on, assuming that you're parked. I used to be a truck driver. This is such a habit for me, it's not even funny. If I'm in the car, I have my seatbelt on. You know, a lot of cops have been killed because they're parked on the side of the highway, they don't have their seatbelt on, they get rear-ended. All of this safety stuff in the car only works if your seatbelt's on to hold you into the seat. Otherwise, you're just like, imagine you take a water balloon and you put it in a metal box, right? You take that water balloon and you tape it to one side of the box, and then you drop the box, the water balloon's likely to be fine, right? It's going to hold on to that impact, the tape's going to hold it in place. Take that water balloon, put it inside the metal box, drop the metal box without it taped to the side, and there's nothing holding it back, it's likely to break. Your body is pretty fragile, and the car is made of metal. So anytime I'm sitting in a car, if the key's in the ignition, it's running, it's in the road, I'm anywhere where somebody might in any way hit it, I put my seatbelt on. Now, you can't see it from your angle. I'm not going to turn you around because it's a lot of work, but there's a road straight in front of me. I'm parked in a parking lot, but there's a road straight in front of me. So it's theoretically possible that somebody could be driving down this road drunk and run headlong into me. So I have my seatbelt on and the car's running. So all the safety systems in the car work. I suggest you do the same. Get in a car, put your seatbelt on. It doesn't matter if you're parked. Nerd Yo-Yo says, to continue my previous question, I've gone through the process for expungement and I still want to try my chances at the police academy. I've always been honest with my past. Am I wasting my time? in many states, you don't have to disclose if you've had something expunged. If it's expunged, it's just gone. So you have to look into it. That's a question for an attorney, though. Tactical Zombie Guy says, can you join the police department with a GED and no criminal justice degree? Yes. Yes, that's entirely possible. You can do that. You might not have a real easy time finding a job unless you've got really solid work history, but you can be a cop with just a GED and no criminal justice degree. Sean O'Toole says, hey, I'm a bored Navy veteran that has reached the cutoff age for my local department, so I try to hire myself out as security, but my uniform needs work, plus I'm trying to come up with training fund. Ran out of room. I'm trying to come up with the money for the training I want, but it's expensive. Well, yeah, training is expensive. It's like what they pay me the big bucks for, is to teach people how to do police work. And yeah, that's difficult. Well, one thing you can do is you can apply for a job with an established security company, and many times they will get you the training that you need to get certified. That would be my suggestion. Lyndon SD says, how can you become a Leo? I am from Germany and I really don't know how I'm supposed to get U.S. citizenship. You're going to have to go to a U.S. consulate and find out, in Germany, and find out how to become a U.S. citizen. If you want to come here and be the police, my suggestion would be just to apply to be the police in Germany, though. Honestly, like, if it was me, I'd apply near home before I went, a continent and an ocean away to go be the police somewhere that I've never been. And I could imagine it would be pretty difficult for someone living in Germany to then be the police in the U.S. just because of culture shock. We have problems with people from nice neighborhoods coming to be the police in a bad neighborhood because of culture shock, let alone from another country. Tier Talk put $1.99 in the donut fund. Thank you, Tier Talk. He said, love your channel, Tommy. Great stuff as always. Thank you for stopping by. We'll have to do some more coordination in the future. Jonathan Laurie says, hello, putting myself through the academy and just want to say that your videos have helped me immensely with learning a few tips and tricks here and there to keep it up, man. Thank you so much. You are very welcome. Zalul Zanin says, hey, I speak Arabic fluently. Will that help me in any way in becoming a police officer? You'd be surprised how much being bilingual will help with being a cop. And when it's a language that not a lot of other people speak, you can go right to the top of the list. A girl I knew like 10 years ago, completely unqualified in most regards compared to her peers to be a cop, but she spoke Mandarin. So she went and found an agency that needed people who spoke Mandarin. And her GED with her McDonald's experience and no criminal background record, but she spoke Mandarin, got her in the door. So you'd be surprised what doors that'll open. You find somebody that needs someone who can speak Farsi, and you can speak Farsi, dude, you're in. As long as you meet the minimum standards, you're in. Josh Hernan says, I have been turned down a couple of times due to lack of full-time employment and a discrepancy from a former employer. I quit, but they listed me as terminated. Will this always affect me? Is it specific? Yeah, that's probably going to continue to affect you. So you're going to have to get that squared away. I can't advise you on how to get that squared away. You need to have, here's a thought, get a full-time job and keep it for a while. Like 2-3 years. That'll help. Keep applying in that time period. There's nothing that keeps you from continuing to apply. You might find a police job at a place that doesn't pay as well, or isn't the place that you want to work, that'll hire you, and then you have full-time job experience. And once you have a job as a cop and you have experience on that job and a good reputation there, a lot of the other stuff doesn't matter in places anymore. My camera shut off again. Brandon Bates says, finally caught you live. How long before you will post the whole stream? I don't know. A few days at the most. I might leave this one up, but this one isn't very good because it keeps falling down. Sean Dean says, can I have you handcuffed? No. Ron Jeremy says, pig. Oh, I'm so offended. Oh my God. Oh, I'm gonna go home and cry because the mean man on the internet who took his name from a porn star called me a pig. I don't care. Mr. Batman says, I'm pretty good at expressing myself and opinions verbally, but good at doing it written. Would that be something that could negatively affect my career in law enforcement? You have to be a really good communicator to be a cop. You don't have to be very verbose like me. You don't have to be like really outgoing, but you have to be able to communicate with people, both orally and written communication. Seymour Butts says, 5'7", 140 pounds, mostly muscle, good at running. Should I ever even attempt to work in law enforcement? Easier to have abs than sleep for me. I don't know. I don't see anything there with it. Being 5'7", 140 pounds, I don't think would keep you from being a cop. Ever. I don't see why that would be a problem. Gaining weight is near impossible. Okay, well, I have the opposite problem. I have a real problem. I've been fighting the battle of the bulge for about 20 years now. The bulge mostly directly above my duty belt. Larry5200 says, my son wanted to be a cop, but I don't want him to because of all the anti-cop rhetoric in the media. Okay. Well, he's going to be an adult before he does that, so he's going to make his own decisions. You know, like, kind of point your kids in the best direction you can, what you think is best for them, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. The Duke of Dog says, what if it's a part-time job due to you being in school, also you're cutting out a bit? Well, I'm sorry about the cutting out a bit. That's why we record this on an A camera. Got my live streaming on my phone here. But if you're in school and you also have a part-time job, then that's good work experience. Nobody expects you to work full-time and be in school at the same time. Ian Regan says, what do you think of departments that won't hire you due to not passing the vision standards? Well, they set standards, and normally they have to have some reason to have that standard, so you're just kind of stuck with it. I don't know what else to tell you, bro. I'm sorry. John Was says, I recently graduated the academy and start FTO next Monday. Congratulations. The position is part-time and makes less than the job I had before. That sucks. Do you think it looks bad to continue applying for full-time positions? No, not necessarily. I mean, you can always apply for places and you say no if, it comes down and you don't want it. I don't know why you would take a part-time position that makes less than the job you had before, unless you were coming from something that, like, you really, really didn't like. You're just trying to get your foot in the door. But I would try to keep the other job and do the part-time thing. Most part-time police department jobs, they allow you a pretty flexible schedule. So if you got like a Monday through Friday 9 to 5, you can work weekends part-time for a police department. Normally that's when they have a problem getting people. The Duke of Dog says, dang it, it's Doog, not Dog. It's okay, everyone calls me Dog the first time. Sorry, the Duke of Doog. Is that right? Duke of Doog? We're at the end of the stream, so good. Is it Duke of Doog? Am I saying that right? Smith & Wesson Model 19 says, would epilepsy, 0 symptoms with medication, be an automatic disqualification from any department by medical? I imagine somebody would consider that a disqualification if they found out about it. But I have no idea. I don't have epilepsy. I don't know anybody that has epilepsy that's trying to be a cop, so I honestly don't know. Duke of Doog says, what do you think about starting out as a civil aid courtesy patrol? Here we have what's called community service officers. Sounds like the same thing. And that's a great stepping stone. Here's what you have to realize is we have other stuff like being a booking officer, where you just work in like the holding facility of the police department. That's another good entry-level thing. Code enforcement, if it's under the police department's auspice, can be another really good thing. Here's what the civil aid courtesy patrol, that community service officer, that type of thing does for you. You get a job, you don't necessarily get police job experience, but you get lots of good references because you've worked for a police department. So you got a bunch of cops and detectives and supervisors and stuff. They can be your references for the next job down the road. And it's a lot easier if your reference for your next job down the road is the same agency. So you apply as a cop for that department and they already know you're already an employee. So you're a step ahead in the background check. Now we're getting all sorts of questions. King Vape OHMS says, man, I've been thinking to apply for the Sheriff's Department where I'm at, and your videos have helped me to make the final decision. Thanks a lot. You're very welcome. Coleman Stein says, last year I was fired from 2 jobs, but I have turned myself around and have been at my current job for almost a year while working on my master's degree. How long should I work before applying? Just start applying now, because they might be looking at your background several years from now. Like, you could apply for a place and not even get a call back to continue the process for a year. So just apply now. And if it turns out it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But it's worth your time and effort to apply if you're serious about it. Poppy Cardboard says, you think your departments could need to hire more officers? Here in Germany, we have way too few, and it gets better slowly. Wonder if it's the same over in the U.S. We've seen a slight decline in the number of people applying, but we're not really short on applicants when it comes to filling jobs. So it's not that type of problem yet. It's a lot worse for nurses. There's a serious shortage of nurses right now. Mr. Batman says, does your department have crisis negotiators, and do you know what the qualifications are to get into that field? Crisis negotiators, so like hostage negotiators, it's like a SWAT team thing, and we have a regional team that does that. I don't know what the qualifications are for it. Ephraim 11B says, does age matter? I'm 39 and thinking about applying for a department. You think I have a chance? You do, depending on where you apply and what condition you're in. There's some agencies, I want to say Florida, somebody told me, Florida or Virginia, there's no age limit. So you may have to relocate, but you can apply there. Dangerous Criminal says, yo, saw you live, so I thought I'd drop by. Thanks for stopping by. Carlos Hidalgo says, is a letter of recommendation helpful versus a performance evaluation during the background investigation? I have heard of places that have you go get letters of recommendation from all of your contacts, all of your references. So it may become very helpful. Aaron Gomez says, how do police departments look at people who come off of being in the military for about 8 years and being the age of 33? One of the best dope cops I've ever met, who's now a lieutenant and like runs a TAC division, was in the Marine Corps from the time that he was like 17 to the time he was 34, got out and got hired by a police department, and he's like really solid guy. And he's got hired, no problem, and they love him there. So it depends on your skill set, but nobody's going to look down on you because you spent 8 years in the military. If anything, that's a big positive in my book. Smith & Wesson Model 19 says, how does being an armored truck courier look on a resume, a decent background to apply? Yeah, if somebody's giving you $100,000 in a truck that's worth $100,000 and a gun and saying, hey, could you take care of this stuff for us? And that means that they trust you at least a little bit. So if a company trusts you for a while, that's probably a good thing. You know what I mean? And my camera's run out of battery, so we're going to call that a day. All right, so that is all there is about the police hiring process that we have today. Took a bunch of live stream comments and questions. Thanks for everybody who stopped by. Make sure to check out the link for this book down in the description if you're interested in becoming a cop. This gives you a lot of good advice for that hiring process. Until next week, you guys be safe. Take care of each other. HYL24 says, is it true some departments consider 4 years of military service as a bachelor's degree? They don't consider it as a bachelor's degree, but they consider it equivalent. So they take it as an equivalency. Tripped chocolate all over myself. Nerdy Yo-Yo says, my internet is lagging. Thank you for answering my question. Sorry I didn't want to come off as whiny, but I'm going to take my chances. Hope for the best. Sending love from Kelly. Good luck. Thanks for your time, Tommy. You're very welcome, man. Good luck to all of you. Chi-Town Rider says, I'm about to graduate the academy in August. I'll see you out there then, man. Have a great day, Tommy. Hey, take it easy, man. We'll see you guys later.